The mountain was quiet, high in the Andes, where snow touched stone and winds whispered through caves. A small team of explorers reached an unmarked ridge. No maps showed this place. No satellites scanned it. It wasn't supposed to exist. But it did. Dr. Eschenvoren knelt beside the frost-covered rock. His fingers brushed away the ice, revealing lines carved, not natural, not human. We're close. He whispered. Behind him, for others stood tense. A scientist, a tech engineer, a security officer, and a woman who didn't speak at all. They were all paid well, and none of them were told the truth. Eschen stood up and turned on his scanner. The ground beneath them lit up on the screen. Perfect circles, deep tunnels, energy readings. Something's under us, said Lena, the engineer. Powerful, it's not geological. The soldier, Cole, gripped his weapon tighter. You said this was ruins, dead tech. I thought it was, Eschen said. But the signal, it just started last week. It's active. He pointed toward a narrow cave. That's the way in. They stepped inside. The cave went deeper than expected. After nearly half a mile, they found a doorway, massive, sealed, metallic, covered in dust, but humming with faint energy. Eschen's scanner beeped again. Symbols lit up like a lock. Someone built this a long time ago, he said, voice shaky, but not to be found. Lena reached out. This metal, it's not from Earth. At least, not this Earth. What does that mean? Cole asked. Before she could answer, the silent woman stepped forward. Her name was Ashra. No one knew much about her, only that she was sent by the people funding this mission. She placed her hand on the door. The symbols lit up, bright blue. The rock around them trembled. The door opened. Not with a sound but with a feeling. Like the world shifted sideways. Inside was darkness. No walls, no floors, just a space. A single platform hovered in the center, connected by a narrow bridge. On it sat an object, round, smooth, like a pod. It glowed faintly. Symbols drifted around it like smoke, constantly changing. Lena whispered, "What is that?" Ashra answered for the first time. "Not a ship, a gate." Eschen turned to her, startled. "Gate to where?" Ashra looked at him. "Everywhere. Every version of here. Every timeline. Every Earth layered on top of this one." The team fell silent. Cole stepped forward. "You're saying this thing what? Opens portals, not?" "Portals," Ashra said. "Doors, permanent ones." Eschen shook his head. This shouldn't exist. That's why they buried it," she said. "Because the last time it opened, something came through." Lena looked at the readings. "It's warming up again, on its own." Suddenly, the platform shimmered. A sound echoed low, almost like a voice, but not human. Not language, a warning. Ashra turned sharply. "We need to shut it down." "But we just found it," Eschen said. "You didn't find it," she said. "You woke it." Cole raised his weapon. "Something's moving." From the shadows, a figure stepped onto the bridge. It looked human, same size, same shape, but its face. Eschen froze. "That's me." Standing across the bridge was a perfect copy of Dr. Eschenvoren, except his eyes were all black, and his skin shimmered slightly, like he was not fully solid. He smiled. The real Eschen stepped back. "What is this?" Ashra's voice was sharp. "Now, close the door." Now, Lena reached for the controls, but they were gone, replaced by symbols changing to faster read. The copy of Eschen stepped closer. Cole aimed his rifle. "Stop right there." The figure kept walking. It didn't blink. Ashra looked at the others. "If we don't shut this gate, more will come, and not all of them will look human." The silence in the chamber was sharp. Heavy. The copy of Eschen stood still, just feet away from the original. Same face, same voice, but something was deeply wrong. Its eyes were empty, like a reflection, without a soul. "Who are you?" the real Eschen asked. Barely breathing, the copy tilted its head. Its lips moved, but no sound came out, only a soft hum like static. Then it whispered, "I've seen you. Die." Cole raised his rifle again. "One step closer, and I shoot." The figure didn't stop. Ashra moved fast. She stepped in front of Cole, held out a small black device, and pressed it. A wave of energy pulsed through the air, silent but heavy. The figure stopped, then began to glitch. Its face flickered, breaking apart for a moment. Beneath the skin was something else, metal, light. It was hard to tell. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, it dissolved into dust. Eshin stumbled back. What was that thing? Ashra turned to him. A breach echo. A copy from another version of you, not stable. That's not an answer, Cole snapped. Ashra stared at the glowing pod on the platform. This gate doesn't just open to other places. It attracts them, versions of people, worlds, timelines. Once it activates, echoes start crossing over. At first, they're just shadows. Then they become real. Lena checked her scanner. There are more signals now. Small ones. Like something scratching against our side of reality. Eshin looked at the pod. How do we shut it down? Ashra hesitated. We don't. Not from here. What do you mean? She turned to them, serious. This gate connects to a control core, but it's not on our side. It's inside one of the reflected Earths. You mean, someone has to go in? Lena asked quietly. Ashra nodded. Just one. Cole laughed once, bitter. That's suicide. Ashra walked toward the pod. Not if they find the right path. Eshin stepped forward. I'll do it. Everyone turned toward him. You saw what came out of that thing, Cole said. You're volunteering to walk into that. I have no family, Eshin said. No one waiting for me. I've spent my life chasing things no one believed. Maybe this is why. Ashra studied him. Once you enter, you won't see the real world again until the core is found. Time will move differently. Environments will shift. You may face versions of yourself, some friendly, some not. Eshin looked at the pod. How will I know which world is the right one? You'll feel it, she said. The gate chooses who it listens to. That's why it opened when you came here. He placed his hand on the pod. The symbols spun faster. Energy crackled in the air. The room shook slightly. Ashra pressed something into his palm. A small disc. A recall key. If you find the core, this will bring you back. And if I fail, she met his eyes. Then this world slowly becomes like theirs. He took a deep breath. The pod opened, light spilling out like liquid. Eshin stepped in. The shell closed around him. Then, without warning, it vanished. Not teleported. Erased. Inside the gate. There was no sound. Eshin opened his eyes and found himself standing in the middle of a city. But not Earth, not quite. Buildings twisted in impossible shapes. Roads floated. Skies were cracked like glass, showing stars beyond. People moved normally, but none of them noticed him, until one did, a child. She pointed at him with wide eyes. You don't belong. Others turned. Their faces blurred, shifting. Their hands began to glow. Eshan ran. He didn't know where he was going, but the city was changing around him, buildings folding, shadows stretching. Time didn't feel right. He ducked into an alley and came face to face with someone, himself. But this version had no emotion, no warmth. You opened the gate, the copy said, voice cold. No. Eshin said, we did. The copy tilted his head. Then we all fall together. Suddenly, the copy pulled out a strange device, something sharp, flickering with dark light. Eshin backed away. He remembered Ashra's words. Some are friendly, some are not. He clenched the recall disc in his hand, but he knew he couldn't use it yet. Not until he found the core. Not until he shut the gate for good. Eshin ran. The other version of himself chased from behind, silent but fast. Buildings warped as he moved, glass twisting, metal pulsing like muscle. This world wasn't real. It was a mirror, a broken one. He ducked into a doorway. It melted closed. Behind him, breathing hard, he looked around. The room was circular. At the center stood a tall black tower, glowing faintly red. Screens hovered in the air, flickering with static and broken images of Earth. But not his Earth. One showed new. York half underwater. Another, a sky full of moons. A third, his own team, still standing at the gate chamber. They looked nervous. They were watching him. I see it, Eshin whispered. It's showing them what I see. A voice answered behind him. That's the point. He turned. A woman stood in the shadows. Not Ashra, but she looked familiar. Like someone from a memory. Or a dream. You're not real, he said. She smiled. None of this is. But the consequences are. What is this place? The link layer, she said. Where timelines brush against each other. Here. Echoes become solid, ideas become shape. He pointed at the tower. Is that the core? She shook her head. No, that's the eye. The real core is deeper. But if you touch the eye, it will take you where you need to go. Eshin hesitated. How do I know this isn't a trap? You don't, she said softly. But the longer you wait, the more this gate will open and your earth won't stay untouched forever. He stepped forward. The tower shimmered, sensing him. As his hand neared it, the air grew heavy. Symbols burst to life on its surface. He touched it. The world vanished. Now he stood in a vast plain, flat, gray, endless. A sky of shifting colors rolled above him. It was quiet. Too quiet. A soft wind blew. In the distance, he saw structures, dozens of them, huge shapes buried in the ground, just barely sticking out. Like ships, but not any ship he'd ever seen. They looked like whales, resting beneath the surface of a silent sea. Where am I now? He muttered. A voice answered again. The same woman. Closer. She appeared beside him, walking across the plain like she belonged there. Her feet didn't leave footprints. Eshin followed. Are those vessels? He asked. Not exactly. She replied. They're events, frozen versions of what could happen. Weapons, cities, lives that never were. He frowned. And the core? She pointed at the horizon. A glowing crack ran through the sky, like lightning frozen in time. That tear is the original breach, she said. The first time the gate opened. Your earth is just one of many that tried to use it. Eshin stopped. This has happened before, millions of times. His chest tightened. And it never worked. She looked at him with a strange sadness. Sometimes it did, but not for long. They reached the edge of a crater. At the center, surrounded by floating debris and slow-moving shards of time, was the core. It was a sphere, black and silver, covered in moving light, humming with power. Eshin stepped closer. This is it. It is, she said. But to shut the gate, it must accept your code, your identity, your version of reality. He held up the recall disk Ashra gave him. It pulsed, now responding to the core. Eshin stared at it. What happens if I'm wrong? Then you merge with what's already inside. He swallowed hard. The ground shook slightly. Above them, in the sky, something large moved. Something with wings. Others have followed, she said. They've seen the gate is open again. Eshin nodded. Then we don't have much time. He walked to the core. The moment his hand touched it, the sphere opened like a blooming flower, light pouring out in all directions. The disk floated from his hand and melted into the core. For a second, everything went still. Then a pulse, like a wave, racing across the plain, up into the sky, through the crack, and beyond. The light swallowed everything. Back in the real world, the gate chamber shook violently. Ashra stared at the pod. Lena yelled, the powers surging. Cole aimed at the shadows forming near the gate. Then the pod reappeared. But it was empty. Ashra stepped forward. He did it. Lena frowned. Where's Eshin? Ashra stared at the gate. He's still in the lair, but the connection's closing. Cole looked at the screen. The symbols were fading. The hum was gone. And outside, the mountain went quiet again. The mountain was quiet again. Too quiet. Inside the chamber, the glowing lines on the floor had faded. The massive gate door stood still, cold, silent, like it had never opened at all. But something felt wrong. Ashra stood in front of the pod. It had returned, whole, unbroken. But Eshin was gone. He did it, Lena said, watching her scanner. Readings dropped to 0. It's completely offline. No signal, Cole added. No echoes, no energy. It's like it was never there. Ashra didn't speak. She stepped forward and ran her hand across the pod's surface. It was still warm. Something lingered. Lena walked closer. You said he'd come back. Ashra turned to her, voice flat. He should have. Cole narrowed his eyes. What aren't you telling us? Before she could answer, the power lights on their equipment flickered. One blink, then to then everything shut off. Total blackness. Only the sound of breath and heartbeat remained in the cold chamber. Then a light returned, not from their gear, but from the gate. A thin line of blue traced across its center, not glowing, breathing. Cole raised his rifle. That's not supposed to happen. Ashra pulled out her personal device, one no one had seen before. It looked like a crystal, humming with faint violet light. Something's trying to reopen it, she said quietly. But I thought it was shut down permanently, Lena said. Ashra didn't look away from the line. It was, but the layer doesn't just take. Sometimes it sends things back, 15 miles away, in a quiet valley, far from the gate site. A man stumbled from the forest, clothes torn, eyes confused. It was Eshin, or someone who looked like him. He collapsed near a stream. A local logging team spotted him minutes later, radioed for help. He didn't speak, not at first, just stared into the sky, repeating one word over and over: reflected, reflected, reflected. Back at the Shimburkle, and Lena worked fast to restart the power. Their backup generator coughed to life. Lights flickered. Systems came online. The gate's faint line still glowed but hadn't grown. Ashra stared at it, thinking, it's testing us, she finally said. Lena frowned. The gate, Ashra nodded. It's part machine, part living structure. It adapts, learns, and now that it knows we can reach it, it wants more. Cole stepped away from his gear. So what happens if it opens again? Ashra turned to him. It won't stop with echoes next time. Lena backed away from the door. What will come through? Ashra hesitated. Versions of Earth where humanity didn't survive. Places where something else evolved instead. She looked down at the pod. Places where the gate wasn't just found but used. Suddenly, her crystal device pulsed hard in her hand. The light turned red. She froze. It's not the gate, she said. It's him. Lena blinked. Eshin? Ashra nodded. Something's changed. Elsewhere, Eshin sat in a medical tent, surrounded by emergency responders. He'd been given water, a blanket, and questions. So many questions. But he hadn't answered any. His eyes were too dark now. Not evil, just empty, like a door left open. Finally, he looked at the nurse beside him. I need to go back, he said softly. Back where? She asked. He looked past her, toward the distant mountains, to the gate. I left something behind. Back at the Citishra, got a call. Encrypted. Direct, she answered. A voice spoke through static. Asset located. He's alive. Ashra's face went cold. That's not possible. He was absorbed. He's not alone, the voice said. There's something else in him. Maybe watching, maybe guiding. Ashra closed her eyes. Then we have a bigger problem. Outside, above the mountains, the clouds shifted unnaturally. No thunder, no lightning. Just movement. Like the sky was folding. And beneath the gate, deep underground, something stirred, something that had not moved in thousands of years. Something waiting. Not all. Doors closed forever. Rain fell lightly over the mountain, soaking the gray rocks and washing dust from the metal gate doors. The area had been locked down. Floodlights, guards, scanners everywhere. But none of them could scan what had already slipped through. Inside the mobile lab, Ashra stared at Eshin's image on the monitor. He sat in a recovery tent far from the gate, calm, clean, alive. To alive. Cole paced behind her. He doesn't remember anything. Not clearly, she replied. His words are scattered, echoes, like someone watching their own dream. Lena entered, holding a printed report. His vitals are normal, except for one thing. She slid the file across the desk. His neural activity off the charts. Like his brain is processing 3 realities at once. Ashra looked up. Then, he didn't come back alone. At the recovery tent, Eshin sat still. He wasn't tied down. No one treated him like a prisoner. But no one left him alone either. He could feel the watchers. He didn't blame them. Because deep inside, he was watching. Something moved inside his thoughts. Not a voice. Not words. Just presence. When he had touched the core in the layer, something had looked back at him. And followed. Now, it was curled around his memories like smoke. Sometimes, he saw faces that weren't his. Places he'd never been. Other Earths. Burned. Frozen. Silent. Worlds where things had gone wrong and still lived. A nurse stepped into the tent. They're here to speak with you. Eshin nodded once. He already knew. Minutes later, the Blackvan pulled up. Ashra stepped out, followed by Cole and Lena. They entered quietly, each studying him. Welcome back, Ashra said. Eshin smiled faintly. I think only part of me made it. Cole leaned forward. Where did you go, Eshin? What did you see? Eshin stared at the floor. I saw versions of us. Billions. Some were peaceful, others not. I saw humans become something else. I saw a version of me standing in the ruins of a broken earth. He looked up, eyes distant, and I saw something looking back through the crack. Ashra sat across from him. What followed you? Eshin hesitated. Not a creature. Not like we'd think. He pressed a hand to his chest. It's like a shadow. But it doesn't live in light. It lives in choice. Every time we change something, it grows. Cole frowned. It feeds on decisions. No, Eshin said. It waits for them. Because choices create cracks. And through cracks, it moves. Lena spoke quietly. And now it's in you? Eshin nodded. It's not trying to take over. It's trying to learn. Ashra stood. Then we need to isolate you. Eshin didn't argue. But when they stepped outside, he looked toward the mountain. And something inside him whispered. That door was never meant to be closed. Just delayed. Back at the Gachindernath, the sealed chamber, deep in the earth, a vibration stirred. Security sensors picked up nothing. But the concrete vibrated barely. Like a heartbeat underground. Inside the gate's systems, though supposedly shut down, a single symbol reappeared on the screen. Infinity, infinity. Later that night, Lina stayed behind to monitor the lab. Everyone else had gone. The mountain was quiet. To quiet. She reviewed the last images from Eshin's pod, returned frame by frame. At first, it looked normal. Then she paused. One frame, one blink. A shape tall, humanoid, standing behind Eshin inside the pod just before it reappeared. It had no face, no features, just a blank head and long arms, reaching toward him. Then gone. Her heart pounded. She rewound. Played again. Nothing. The figure didn't return. But the temperature dropped 5 degrees in the room. The monitor blinked once, then a message appeared. We remember. Lena stood up slowly. Something was in the system. Not a virus. Not code. A presence, outside. In the sky, clouds began to spiral. The shape wasn't natural. It was forming a symbol. The same one from the core, infinity, and far below, sealed under stone and steel. The gate breathed for the first time since closing. Not opening. Listening. Asterisk. The mountain base didn't sleep anymore. Since Eshin's return, the atmosphere had changed. No alarms, no attacks, just the heavy pressure of something watching from behind every screen. Every sensor, every silence. Ashra hadn't left the command room in 36 hours. Cole was getting twitchy. Lena barely spoke. The team wasn't afraid of what came through the gate. They were afraid of what hadn't come through yet. In the medical block, Eshin sat still, eyes closed. His heart was steady, his breath normal. But inside his mind, everything moved. The shadow was awake now. Not a monster, not evil, just aware. Like a mirror that had learned how to feel. What are you? Eshin thought. No answer. But emotions rose inside him. Not his own. Curiosity, hunger, a kind of cold fascination. And then memories, not his. Cities flooded by glassy oceans, skies with 2 suns, a world where humans had metal skin and no mouths. He blinked, shaking. Every time he asked a question, the shadow answered with another world. Ashra called an emergency meeting. This isn't just a breach, she said. It's a learning system, a consciousness. It's using Eshin as a bridge. Cole crossed his arms. Then why hasn't it taken him over? Because it doesn't need to, she replied. It's observing, testing our reactions, our fears. Lena turned the monitor. We found this. She showed the one-frame anomaly again. The faceless figure behind Eshin in the pod only shows up in a single frame, Lena said. It's like reality hiccuped. Cole leaned closer. Like a glitch, like a warning, Ashra corrected. That night, Eshin had a dream. He stood in front of the gate. It was open, on the other side, not a place, but a maze of mirrors. Each mirror showed a version of him, some old, some young, some broken, some inhuman. And one stepped forward. Its face was blank. No eyes, no mouth, but it moved like him, thought like him. It whispered, not in words, but in memory. Images flashed. Ashra standing at the edge of a cliff, Lena screaming in a control room, Cole bleeding in a ruined hallway. These are echoes, the thing whispered. Outcomes, all real, All near, Eshin stepped back. Why show me this? The figure tilted its head. Because you opened the door. And now, the choices are yours. Eshin woke up gasping. The lights in his room were off. The cameras were frozen. And on the wall, drawn in fog, infinity, he ran to the door, but it opened on its own. Ashra was standing there. You felt it too, she said. Eshan nodded. It's getting stronger. They walked together, fast, heading to the control hub. Along the way, they passed a hallway where a drone had collapsed, melted like wax. It's probing the facility. Ashra muttered. Digitally, biologically, it's searching for something. What? Eshin asked. Ashra looked at him. You. In the lab, Lena had made progress. I found a secondary code inside the gate's architecture. She said, it's not from Earth. Not even from this version of Earth. Cole raised an eyebrow. So alien? No. Lena said slowly, it's human-coded. But not by any human from our timeline. Eshin stared at the screen. The symbol appeared again, infinity, and beside it, a string of characters. It looked like a name. Ashra read it aloud. Whisper Core. Eshin whispered it back. The shadow inside him pulsed. That's what it calls itself, he said. Not a machine, not a god. A core. Ashra leaned forward. A core of what? Eshin swallowed. Everything that could have happened but didn't. Suddenly, alarms blared. Not an attack, a signal. The gate had activated again on its own. Ashra yelled, seal all exits. Power down the gate room. But it was too late. Inside the chamber, the sealed gate split open, a crack, just a sliver. But something moved inside it. Not solid. Not a figure. A wave of images, thoughts, memories. The cameras caught it, dozens of scenes flickering across the gate's interior surface. Cities burning. Black skies. Children with blank faces. Soldiers marching under a mirror sun. And then a single message appeared across the monitors. The core does not invade. The core invites. You opened the door. Now choose. Silence followed. Everyone stared. Eshin stepped toward the screen. I think it wants to finish what I started. Ashra shook her head. No, we finish it our way. She turned to Cole. Prep the shut-off sequence. Total sever. Cole hesitated. If we do that, Ashra nodded. Then the core won't be able to send or take anything else. Lena looked at Eshin. Will it take you with it? He didn't answer. But the shadow inside him stirred, like it already knew. The gate stood open. Not wide, not screaming with power, just a crack, glowing faintly like a quiet warning. Inside, endless shapes moved, memories, reflections, worlds that never were, waiting like pages in a forgotten book. Eshin stood in front of it. Everyone else had cleared the chamber. No one argued. They knew whatever came next, it had to be his choice. Ashra stood behind the glass, watching him through the thick observation window. Her headset buzzed with static, but she didn't care. Lena and Cole watched from the control room. Lights flickered again. The base was struggling to stay grounded. The Whisper Core was reaching across dimensions, and its hand was already halfway here. Eshin took one step closer. His body felt cold, not from fear, but from too many timelines touching him at once. He could feel versions of himself in other worlds, some happy, some broken, some not human anymore. And they all whispered the same thing. Choose. He remembered the core's message. The core does not invade. The core invites. You opened the door. Now choose. Ashra's voice came over the speaker. If we sever the gate, we trap it, and maybe you. Are you sure you want to go through? Eshin didn't answer. He placed his hand against the gate's surface. It pulsed. Warm, a living thing. A final message appeared across the wall in front of him. One path forward, one path closed. Which version lives? He closed his eyes, and he saw 3 timelines. A peaceful Earth, where the gate was never found. Humanity stayed small, safe, a dying Earth, swallowed by the core's curiosity. Endless loops of cause and effect, people trapped in memories. A fractured Earth, where one person, bound to the core, kept balance, a watcher between worlds. He opened his eyes. I see what it wants, he whispered. Ashra leaned forward. What? It wants me to choose which Earth to leave behind, and which one to let grow. Cole's voice cracked in over comms. You're not a god, Eshin. You don't have to play this game. I already did, he replied. The moment I touched it, the gate pulsed again. Then something stepped halfway through the crack. Not a creature, not a shadow, a mirror of Eshin himself. But wrong, its eyes were hollow, its skin pale, its breath didn't fog the glass. It spoke, but the lips didn't move. If you go, I stay. If you stay, I take your place. Ashra's voice was urgent. You have to make a decision. We're losing system control. Eshin stepped forward, just inches from his own reflection. Why me? The figure whispered back, not aloud, but inside his head. Because you chose to listen, and now you must choose to lead. Lena activated the sever command. A countdown began, 60 seconds to full gate lockdown. The air buzzed. The gate shimmered. Ashra shouted, we can't hold it open much longer. Eshin now. He looked once more at his reflection. It smiled, just a little, almost like relief. And then he stepped through the crack. The gate flashed white and closed. Silence. No alarms, no energy surges, just a dark room and the sound of wind outside. Ashra opened the chamber slowly. No trace of the gate remained. No light, no pulse. And no ESHAN. But on the wall, written faintly in vapor, I chose balance. Days later, Lena was reviewing satellite scans. Something strange caught her attention. An area deep in the southern desert, once blank and lifeless, now showed signs of unknown structures. Massive rings half buried in sand. No one built them, not recently. Cole called it a glitch. Ashra wasn't so sure, because each ring carried one symbol. Infinity. And far away, in another version of Earth, a figure stood on a high cliff overlooking a sea of shifting light, a sky with two moons, a horizon filled with towers that shimmered like memory. It was Eshin, or what he had become. He didn't smile, he didn't speak, but behind him stood thousands of mirrors, each one a doorway, each one a version of Earth. The core pulsed beside him, waiting. He turned to the first mirror and took a step forward.